All right, folks, welcome to Inside the Numbers with the People's Pundit. I'm your host, Rich Barris, the People's Pundit. It's Friday. We're going to do a traditional Freewheeling Friday today. And Laura's even going to be in the chat in a bit to grab your comments and shoot them on over to me. Well, questions, comments, whatever, whatever. If you like the videos, don't forget to like them, share them far and wide. Of course, the best way to follow us is right there on your screen, peoplespundit.locals.com, peoplespundit.locals.com. All right. It is the beginning of September, the end of the first week that is in the beginning of September, October 4th. So we're going to go over a little bit of a poll review where we're at. All right, there is some economic news today. It's the jobs report number. It looks, shocker, better than everybody expected. Look, I'm just going to be real with you guys. I don't believe anything the government says. I think they're going to fudge these numbers for Kamala Harris like they did for Barack Obama. I don't believe a word the government says to us anymore. And I think by January, whether Trump wins or Harris wins, I think by January, we'll all be talking about how badly they've revised down all of these numbers, how they lied to us, and the government can't be trusted like they have been for the last 4 years. Does anyone seriously believe them anymore? I don't. Do you see this economic boom? I don't. Also, the polling numbers, if I was concerned about a big polling miss coming in November, if I was concerned before, I grew greatly concerned this week, and I will explain to you why. All right. And then also the plans for the weekend that we have coming up for polling through the Public Polling Project. All right. Now that the VP debate is behind us, which we probably will not ask about in all seriousness. I think in our national poll, I'd rather ask something like, there have been 2 attempts on Trump's life. Do you believe the government in any way, shape, or form has had a role in the attempts on Donald Trump's life? I would like to see where the public is on this, because it's amazing how we just memory hole these massive events that happen in this country now. We're hit with this, like, I say this a lot, but we're hitting this with like a once in a lifetime story every freaking week now. And we just get rid of it, put it on the back burner, and just forget about it. I think if Trump wins this election, we're going to look back and we're going to say, man, I wonder how much the assassination attempts had to do with this. All right. Okay. So, that's my son. And just to let you know, if I look like shit and I look like I haven't slept in days, it's because I haven't. And, unfortunately, I was going to get some sleep in last night, and he's fine, he's cool, but my old man had to go to the hospital. And he's good, but of course I couldn't sleep, So we're all good though. We're good though. He's in great spirits, chasing nurses. That's that's my old man. All right, so good. Anyway, picking on him. Let me just say this: picking on him. All right, he's your textbook old Italian dude. They don't make men like this anymore. Unfortunately, that's why our country is going to shit. All right. I'd rather take an offensive guy who's strong and works 16 to 18 hours a day to make sure that his family is provided for and his sons know what right versus wrong is, even in a shit world that's very difficult to navigate, than over these pansy Dr. Spock losers who create these bastard little kids who run all over the place, kicking the back of chairs on the airplane, spitting and picking their nose on the bus and then wiping it on the back of the seat. You know what I'm talking about. Screaming in the aisles of Publix, I want to go to GameStop. I want to go to GameStop. Oh, honey. We need more of my old man. World would be a better place. All right. So in any event, we'll go over the stuff we're going to do for the weekend. And I think, well, I don't know. I think it's possible that I want to put together, there's a question we used to use in 2016. And it's beyond asking about normal vote history. And we would press people a little bit about why, if their vote history was rough, then it was trying to understand why they don't participate anymore if they used to in the past. And it's not really aimed at first-time voters or new or low prop voters that are new to the electorate because of their age. It's aimed at people who more like gave up on the electorate and gave up on the process and then came back. And man, that question allowed us to understand why there was going to be this group of people who would in fact vote. Like, why turnout would it be higher in 16 than it was in 12, even though most people did not expect that. They did not. Everybody expected it to be around 2012 turnout. It would never get between 2012 and 20 and like 08. That would never happen. There's no Barack Obama here. And it did. And they were a huge reason Trump won some of these states that nobody expected him to win, but then also won other states by padded margins. And that's okay. That's where it's a good place to start. So the absurdity of some of these polls, and I don't mean like ridiculous margins for one candidate or the other. I'm talking about how it is not realistic or possible for some of these polls to make sense with each other, and not just pollster against pollster versus themselves. So Remington Research, for example, who's polling for Scott Rasmussen, right? Huge role in the Harris is changing the race dynamic, okay? Their national poll last week was Trump +4. The beginning of this week, it was Harris +4. Excuse me. The beginning of the week, it was Harris +2, and now Harris's lead is completely vaporized, and it is even. Tie ball game. They just dropped a North Carolina poll, which is Trump +4, almost exactly what he won, actually just a little bit stronger than he was in 2016 against Hillary Clinton. All right. Now that kind of makes sense, except they had a poll in Florida earlier in the week, which was Trump by very low single digits. Folks, one, and then of course, you have all the cook, like Dave Wasserman tools. John, oh yeah, it's polling in the low single digits, of course, but let's look at the voter registration. Okay. So what are you saying, Dave? There's going to be a polling mess. Is that what you're trying to say? You just don't have the balls to say it? All right, because I'm like getting tired of these people, folks. This is why I've always been disliked among this crew. I just don't care. Like, I just don't have this like civility level that I guess every nerd in this industry is supposed to have. I don't know. Like, are like cool, like, guitar playing alpha men like not allowed to be pollsters? Everyone's got to be these dweebs who walk around with like their like bobas and lattes. Like, if you have something to say, be a man and say it. You don't think the polls are correct. Okay, like which polls? Your own polls? Which, by the way, again, you released 2 weeks after the first interview? If polls are snapshots in time, then why would Cook Politico Report release polls this week when the first interviews in those polls were conducted nearly just almost 13 days before? So what you're saying is, I'm releasing these polls to tell you about what the race was 2 weeks ago. Because polls are snapshots in time, right? I mean, that's what I mean by ludicrous. Like, all of this is just so ludicrous. If you're polling Florida, Dave, and it's in the low single digits, you're polling it wrong. Again. Marco Rubio by 2. Okay? Ron DeSantis by 8. Same poll. Except they both won by nearly identical margins, and they won by like 19 points. So just stop. I'm back to this now. Stop polling Florida. You don't know how to poll the state. And by the way, 700 responses is not enough for the state of Florida. Survey Research 101, dipshits. If the response rate is low, what is the one and only thing that you can do? Raise the sample size. If your response rate is 1%, you cannot poll a state like Florida. 14 million voters with a 700 sample size. There's like more subgroup ethnicities among Hispanics than there is interviews in your survey. I mean, obviously, I'm being a little bit dramatic with that example, but you know what I'm talking about. How many Puerto Ricans did you speak to? How many Cubans did you speak to? How many Venezuelans did you speak to? How many Mexicans did you speak to? How many Colombians did you speak to? God, here we go again. When I saw that Florida poll, I thought, oh my God, it's going to happen again. Here we go. Because they're not seeing it in their national numbers. They're not seeing the strength for Harris in their national numbers. Nobody is. Nobody is. Maris +1? +1? A poll that gave the last two Democratic nominees a 9 to 12 point advantage? Quinnipiac. A tied race, basically. Actually, with everyone on the ballot, it was Trump +1. They got him up 6 in Georgia. A poll that had Biden ahead in Ohio and Iowa. So they're not seeing her strength in the national numbers yet. In some of these battleground states, we're supposed to expect they're supposed to pretend she's that. They just so happen to be the battleground states. Pollsters can't poll. Florida, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, Michigan. Hell, even Ohio, Iowa. They can't poll them either. North Carolina hasn't been polled correctly in over a decade. Like 3 of us polled that Senate race on the money last cycle. Like 3 or 4 of us. And we're just, it's a little bit mad. It's like a little, it's madness a little bit to me. That so many of these people who think they do this for a living, like, aren't pointing this out. It cannot be a tied race nationally. If Trump is up 4 in North Carolina and he's only up a couple of points in Florida, that race makes no sense. In no universe is that race going to happen, folks. That's 2016. Are the demographics of the coalitions the same as they were in 2016? Nope. Is the country the same as it was in 2016? Nope. Come on. Give me a break. CNN, Harris +1. +1 is a loss for Kamala Harris, unless Nate Silver moves his fake election model again. Harris +1 is a loss. And by the way, it's a pretty bad loss. Pretty bad. Somehow all the native pollsters in Michigan don't see it that way. Mitchell Research, which never had Trump ahead in any of the prior elections, just dropped their new poll. They will run a tracker in the state of Michigan, or at least Mitchell usually does that. I believe the last poll for Clinton was Clinton +6. I mean, he wasn't like, I mean, that's bad, but it wasn't like awful. And I don't know. Biden was way out there. I don't know. Of course, Clinton lost and Biden barely won. Less than a 3-point margin within any poll sampling error. It's just kind of ridiculous. Also, how could there be articles? Because let's talk about first, I guess, Pennsylvania, the Great Lakes states. Trump is for some reason surging and predicted. It could be the debate last night. I'm going to show you a clip from that real quick. In a second, we also have somebody coming on. Yup. I want to talk about it with him, and I want to talk about what's going on in Pennsylvania this weekend. But everybody knows on both sides that race is a dead heat. It's basically even. Dead even. Not basically. It is dead even. Some days Casey's up a couple of points. Other days, actually, McCormick has led by a single point. It is dead even. Eric Hovda over in Wisconsin running against old Tammy. That race now, Politico headline today. Democrat internal polling only has Baldwin up by 2, and her lead has evaporated in the last week and a half. Evaporated. And they're outspent. She blew her wad already. Pardon the expression. She blew her wad already. And Hovda's got the spending advantage going into the final stretch. I don't like that strategy. I don't believe in that strategy. I believe in the define your opponent early strategy because that's the way the human mind works. It is difficult to change human minds once they are set in stone. Very difficult. Once you define someone, it is hard. I mean, take a politician or a celebrity. It is so hard for them to redo their image. People have their thoughts, their impressions, their first impressions, and they're set in their ways. Something else, by the way, that indicates a polling miss and Harris's strength is overstated in the polls. This is the most unpopular vice president in the history of Gallup polling. More unpopular than Dick Cheney, more unpopular than Dan Quayle, the bumbling moron Dan Quayle. And yet this media offensive, and it is offensive, by the way, it's offensive, filled with a load of horseshit. One gaslight tactic on another. And it's like, that's what this job has become. That's what they've reduced it to. My job is to measure whether or not state-run media propaganda stays long enough before the public catches on that they're full of shit before an election. That's like a more accurate, unfortunately, a more accurate description of what it is to be a pollster in America today. It's so sad. It's so sad, but that is the truth. Our job is to measure and track whether or not Americans believe the latest line of bullshit that the state-run media has thrown at them long enough for the Democratic Party to win an election. That's all. That's all we do now. Let's see. Will the Russia hoax have staying power long enough for the Democrats to take the House of Representatives? Will the COVID panic and bullshit pandemic have staying power long enough to get Donald Trump unseated as an incumbent? Hey, man, it's been reduced to that. Not exactly George's vision. Anywho, I don't know. Should I wait for this? But here, the bottom line is, like, again, like, there's a lot of these polling things don't make sense, which tells me there's going to be a miss. The question is, how big is it going to be and where? Bo, but Rich, what about 22? Look at some of the early indicators and the early numbers. This is not going to be 22, or at least it doesn't seem that it's going to be 22. Again, old Dave Wasserman acts like he has. This guy doesn't have an original thought in his thick ass head. All of a sudden, he discovered that auto voter registration in Pennsylvania has helped Republicans. This is his discovery. First of all, if you knew the electorate, if you knew the public, you wouldn't have had to even wait to know that that was going to be the case. It tells me, it just confirms to me that they really don't have the information that we have. They don't, not him anyway, not unless some Democrat gives it to him. But over at like these election projection houses, they don't have shit. They don't have voter files that they can open. They can't do this. Okay? Give me a second. I don't want to show you my password. Okay? Give me a second. Let's just pick any tab. Pick a tab. And pick a tab. Any tab. They can't do this. Okay? One second. Bam, 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 bam. Doo, 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 doo. I'm in a good mood today, in case you guys haven't noticed. Hey, look, could have been a really bad day for me. I'm praising God today. You know, I'm in a good mood. I love me some Jesus. They can't do this. The truth is, they don't have this. They can't open up their databases and go through this stuff. Well, what do we got for the voters? What do we got today? Let's look at the state of Michigan. Let's go through consumer data, one another database layered on top of the other. Oh, yeah, let's go check out the audit data. They can't do this because they don't have it, because they don't have access to it, because they're full of shit. Let's see how many low prop voters signed up. They can't do it. They don't have it. It would have been super, super simple to go into the attributes connected to these voter records and consumer records in the state of Pennsylvania and say, let's run a little machine learning model. Find out who's who. So obvious that those are all would-be Republicans sitting home, watching Monday Night Football, Deadliest Catch, some hunting or fishing show, boxing, UFC, right? You get my drift? These are the people who just don't give a shit about the process in Pennsylvania and sit home because they think the process is corrupt, it's rigged. And by the way, half these people will never take a poll. This is what makes they are so difficult to get into the system, which is why, by the way, and I explained this. Oh wait, that's right. Don't forget to watch Gorka's Reality Check on Sunday. Sunday shows. I'll be on there. But I'm just going to tell you, I made a point about how I have, in fact, polled. I have done union votes before for groups. And I am telling you that union members will respond to surveys that are being conducted by their union way in more, and not just enthusiastically, at way higher rates than they will ever respond to a public pollster. That's what's so important about that. If they know that it's from their union, they will take the time to do it. If it's from a public pollster who's asking about an election, they probably aren't going to vote in anyway because they don't believe the system is even, the integrity of the system is corrupted in their minds. It's not a conspiracy theory. The integrity of the system is corrupted. And you could just overwhelm it. You don't have to tolerate it. That's the only thing they're wrong about. You don't have to tolerate it. You could take it back. It's yours. It's going to be too late to take it back soon, but you can take it back. Still, you still have that power. In any event, if they had this stuff, you understand what I'm saying? If they had this stuff, they would know that those people are sitting home, and if they are registered to vote, they will be Republicans by majority, by more than majority. USA Today has long conducted the unlikely voter poll. Why hasn't it come out again? Where's the unlikely voter poll? Every year. Every cycle, I mean. Every presidential cycle. There's an unlikely voter poll released with the, regular in polling. Where is it? It vanished? It vanished months ago. Poof. Thin air. Little tidbit. Barack Obama won the unlikely voter poll. He was crushing Mitt Romney among these people that would be put on the voter rolls if auto voter registration existed. Donald Trump won the unlikely poll done by USA Today, which is something that I was explaining to you. We that question, those series of questions that I was referring to in the beginning of the show, that I may decide to put into the national poll this weekend. That is kind of like I mean, that's what the point of it is. I mean, who are these people? What is more key to their vote history? What is the reason? Why are they not voting? And then if they voted, of course, who would they vote for, right? We had bigger margins than the survey USA Today. God, I always mixed them up. What's the difference? We had bigger margins than the USA Today poll did for 2016. If they were considered in that group in our polling, Trump was thumping her, thumping her. Some days, folks, it was like 80-16. It was huge, massive margin. And it ended up being obviously more modest than that, but certainly not modest. It was overwhelming. The margin was overwhelming. All right. I mean, guys, again, they just have no original thoughts in their head, man. And that's why they don't see what I think we're all going to see. They don't see coming what I think we're all going to see. Unless it irons out. I mean, again, the truth is we're in the beginning of October. We don't know whether or not this is going to play out the way it has played out in past elections. It tightened in 2020 somewhat. It tightened, but it did not tighten like it did in 2016. And the polls just grossly missed, grossly overstated not only Biden support, but Democrat support. That's speaking of Dave Wasserman and the Cook Political Report. They were projecting that Democrats would win an additional 15 seats, upwards of an additional 15 seats in the U.S. House of Representatives. That, in fact, did not happen, and Republicans gained 13. So if there's ever a miss in the House of Representatives, that would be one. All right. Excuse me. Ruben Pfeffer. One of the funniest. Come on. One of the funniest. If you guys don't know what I'm talking about, what about Pauly? It's funny stuff. He's dead now. Philip Seymour Hoffman, but a fantastic actor. Heroin. Heron. The border. Heron. The border and special interest lobbyists being allowed to poison Americans with Oxycontin. You think Philip Seymour Hoffman just found himself walking down the street in some ghetto one day and decided, let me just smack this in my arm? Come on, dude. Pills. Pills, pills, pills. Pills and politicians. Ooh, someone should write a book. Pills and politicians. It's their fault. Who allowed them to poison the nation? They positively knew that Oxycontin was, if not as addictive, perhaps even more so. The studies were outrageous, like outrageous. All right. Sidebar. All right. So let's take a look at some of the fundamentals, which also suggest, and actually I'm going to run a clip here. But the fundamentals were not that badly against Hillary Clinton well, not all of them. There's one that he's going to look at. This guy's going to look at specifically here, but there are, and Barnes and I have gone over them. Gallup, they went over them, and then we went over what Gallup did, their review. So most of the fundamentals certainly suggested that Trump would actually win in 2020, and that didn't happen. So I'm always careful. I'm trying to be careful with this stuff. However, the one that did hold was the trust to handle issues, or what we call mood of the electorate. In other words, and mood of the electorate's more than just that. But what is most important to the voter? Obviously I'm using that word collectively. What is most important to the voter when they go to cast their vote? And then who do they trust to handle those issues or that issue the most? That's part of mood of the electorate. All right. A big part. Another part of it is presidential approval rating. Another part of it is right track, wrong track. All right. And then economic sentiment. All of this Robert and I have gone over, but that's not in the mood of the it is. But when we talk about the mood of the electorate, we're a little bit more specific towards issues. What is driving their vote? and then who do they think is best equipped to deal with those concerns, right? That is a little bit more narrow of a definition, but the rest of this Barnes and I have gone over on what are the odds. We're going to do a recap of it again on Monday. Plus, um, I don't want to take some of the segment material from Barnes, but did you see Polymarket retweet David Giglio when he said that Democratic money manipulates Polymarket? Did you see that? They liked it. I don't know. Did they take the retweet down? They might have taken the retweet down, but they know it. They know it. Trump is up 6 in Polymarket in Pennsylvania right now. It's been some pretty big movement actually there. Again, no. This is what the betting markets do. They are grossly manipulated by fraudsters like Nate Silver, and money. Dark Democratic money manipulates the betting markets. Or not just the betting, certain ones more specifically than others. But Polymarket themselves acknowledge that. I should get that for you when I come back. I should show you this. All right, let's roll with this. Right track, wrong track is yet another one.
This sort of gets at a problem for Kamala Harris's campaign. Just 28% of Americans think the U.S. is on the right track. And I want you to put that in a perspective, right? When does the average, when the incumbent party loses the election, look at that. It's just 25%. That looks a heck of a lot like that 28%, right, that currently think the country is on the right track. When the White House party wins, i.e. Kamala Harris's party, the Democrats, 42% on average think that the country is on the right track. This 25% looks a lot more like this 28%. It doesn't look anything like this 42%. This, to me, is a bad sign for Kamala Harris's campaign. The bottom line is it looks a lot more like a loser than it does like a winner when it comes to the country being on the right track.
And we'll stop right there for a second. I'll play the rest in a second. But that is, listen, I'm trying to be careful here now. These fundamentals are so skewed in favor of Donald Trump this cycle. So skewed in favor of Donald Trump this cycle that I'm really concerned about the future of my job if Kamala Harris wins this election, because nobody is going to believe anything. I mean, it's just nobody's just going to believe anything anymore. They're not going to believe government data. They're not going to believe this stuff. Like nothing is going to matter anymore. It's a free for all that, as Gordon Sondland himself, by the way, on Ari Melber the other night said, that the irregularities in how we view the world and our elections, I mean, how we view our system, our social contract, and the elections, the irregularities are going to be so bad that it's just going to be gone. I mean, it's going to the fabric of it is just going to melt away, and no one's going to know anymore. No one's going to know anymore. If everything we know, for instance, like one candidate is trusted to handle the issues more than the other candidate, and that's the most important issues, and it's really not even that close anymore. I mean, quick Politico arguing that's why she's winning, because she's narrowed that advantage. That's bullshit. She's narrowed the advantage on some. She has not narrowed the advantage on the 3 top issues. Abortion is not a top issue. It is way back there now. On the 3 of the 4 top issues, as Peter Navarro also said on Ari Melber, by the way. Thank you, Peter. That was my polling data, in case you guys missed that. And then Gordon Sondland, and then they're questioning it. And Gordon Sondland, basically, because he embodies that guy, right, that Peter's talking about. Like, I don't really like Trump, but the fact of the matter is, Harris would be a disaster. This administration's been a disaster, so I'm going to vote for Trump. Like, Gordon Sondland himself embodies the guy that Peter was talking about using our polling. Gordon Sondland once said that he would never vote for Donald Trump again. He's not qualified to be president because of January 6th, blah, 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 blah. Well, he's changed his tune all these years later because it's such a dump. Everything is such in a bad way. So that, I mean, anyway, yeah. Oops. Sorry about that. I'm sorry. Come on, kid. He knows better. My son's having some little bit of a school thing going on right now. Don't use your phone in school, kid. You know the rules. All right? He gets his phone taken away. Then I got to go down there and pick it up. I got to apologize to the principal. Son, apologize to the principal for breaking the rules. Like, it's annoying, you know? Especially since his school isn't that close. Like, come on, man. I'm not going that way. Anyway, back to where I was. He got me. Thanks. Thanks, son. Thanks. I've lost my train of thought. Locals, what the hell was I talking about? Come on, kid. Chat. What was I talking about, chat? Jesus. Love of God. Yeah, that's actually, I mean, that's part of where I was going here. Right. Thank you, David. Thank you. So, where I was going with this is their record has been so bad, and he called the potential for Harris to implement her policies after Biden an existential threat to the country. There are so many Gordon Sondlands, and that was the entire point that Peter was trying to make. Because things have been so bad, people trust Trump more on the main issues. If like we can't even look at these basic stuff that we know is what decides elections, then I really worry and I'm concerned about the future of all of this entire process, not just like my job, the entire process. And I'm also concerned about my industry if they continue along with this, like, what's the word I'm looking for? It's almost like manic. It's like bipolar polling, right? Like it doesn't make any sense. The race cannot be tied or damn near tied and Harris be close in Iowa and Florida, right? The race cannot be tied and Trump be down 5 points in Pennsylvania, right? The race cannot be tied and Donald Trump be, because there's no so far there are no polls that suggest they are like grossly overstating Trump support. If anything, if anyone is overstated, there's no evidence to suggest it will be anyone other than Harris. I mean, really. And all of the polling groups all of these groups that pollsters miss that create these misses, this is so important for you all to understand. The polling group, the demographics that cause pollsters to miss elections would not help Kamala Harris in engaging her support. All right. And what happened in 22 is, again, very, very simple. It's where the realignment happened. Those voters that once hurt Democrats during midterms for not staying home are now Republican. I'm being very simple here, but they now favor Republicans. The groups that are high turnout that favor Democrats, the groups that are high turnout that once favored Republicans in midterms now favor Democrats. The only way that Harris's vote could be completely understated is if these people don't show up and it's like they don't come out for Trump like they have in the past two times he ran for president. Both times he got these people out. We would have to believe he's not going to get them out. And honestly, some of the early voting data already suggests that's BS. PA requests are low prop voters. Virginia, the numbers in Virginia, every Republican is over the moon about. Too many first-time voters. Everyone knows they're not Harris voters. They're not. Some of them are, of course, but by margin, it's a margin for Trump, a big margin for Trump. So there you have it. All right, let's finish the rest of Harry Anthony's video because we got guests coming up here soon. We're going to be too busy for this.
And an incumbent party win with numbers like this.
Yeah, so if we look historically speaking, right, and we say, okay, say the U.S. is on the right track, the incumbent party, when they win. Today, again, it's just 28%. Look throughout history, right? 96, 88, 04, 12, 84. In all these instances, far more than 28% thought that the country was on the right track. 39 was the lowest back in 1996. We got upwards of 47% in 84. Of course, that was a blowout, right, for Ronald Reagan. So there is no historical precedent for the White House party winning another term in the White House when just 28% of the country thinks that we're on the right track. John, simply put, it would be historically unprecedented.
So is there any good news or interpretation or prism you can look through where Democrats can say,
give me copium, baby. Give me copium. I'm fiending for some copium here. Come on, Harry. Don't leave it like this. Don't leave it like this, damn it. Give me something I can take home to mama. Give me a break, dude.
Well, maybe it's okay.
Okay, so let's look back to the last midterm, because sometimes history
told you.
is made to be broken, Mr. Berman.
Well, that is true. I got to just say, absolutely, that is true. But again, Harry knows that midterm cycles are not at all comparable to presidential cycles. They never have been. If they are again, it's like we're breaking every rule, and that is not indicative of some history breaking event. That is indicative of a compromised system. All right? Period. So again, the only way this can happen, folks, is if you let it happen. You would have to not vote. You would have to not vote. All right? But let's finish, Harry, and then we'll have to take a quick break, bring gas on.
All right, say the country is on the right track in midterms. Democrats had a good midterm despite this. The old low for the country saying that we were on the right track was 27% back in 1994. Of course, that was a blowout, right? The Republicans romped over the Democrats and Bill Clinton. But this
I'm going to explain this in a second, though, as to what I think happened. Actually, not what I think happened, what did happen, and see if that's comparable at all to today.
This particular past midterm, look, just 26% said that the country was on the right track, and Democrats did pretty gosh darn good. Maybe we've entered a new political environment where Donald Trump is so unpopular that these historical norms, these historical measures that we look at don't actually mean what we think anymore. I'll tell you this much. Kamala Harris better hope that's the case, because otherwise this right track, wrong direction situation will not work out in their favor.
Did you see him about to have a crybaby session right there? Did you see him look over to the producer? And the producer was doing what? Screaming in his ear and telling him to redirect. Did you see that? Did you catch that? He actually looked over at the producer and he was like, okay. And he nodded his head. I've been in this business. I've been on countless shows. I'm telling you, that's what that was. That was the producer going, redirect this. Redirect this. We're not ending this segment on this note. Redirect. All right. In 2022, totally different environment. It was the January 6th environment, right? Trump was still unpopular. Less popular than today, which is where I'm going, but still unpopular. And if you ask people about what they actually believed was happening, why is the country on the wrong track? You got inflation and other things like that, but you had a lot of people who were saying, you know what? There are all these threats to democracy, and they believed it and viewed it in the sense of January 6th. When people say that now, they don't. Democrats have lost their advantage on that because they overstepped with lawfare. And people will say the weaponization of the justice system. The fact, and so many other things, but it's not January 6th. Democrats will. Some Democrats will. You're not going to get that on Republicans anymore at those numbers, and you're definitely not getting them on independents at those numbers. Also, right at the bottom there, it says, maybe Trump's unpopularity has broken the rules. Except Donald Trump is the most popular he has ever been right now. Donald Trump has never been more popular than he is today, right now. He has never been more popular than he is right now. So that doesn't make any sense. And as Harry knows, as Harry knows, midterm elections aren't at all comparable. All right, let's wrap this up, and then I got to take a break.
The other thing Democrats do say is numbers like the jobs numbers we just saw, they are seeing things improve a little bit week by week on the margins.
Yeah, I would say, look, right now, if we're saying, 28% of the country is on the right track, that number was closer to low 20s at the beginning of the year. So it has gone up a
give
little
me
bit,
a break.
but still, you're very much in the danger zone
Harry.
when we're looking at that right track, wrong direction number. That's where Democrats are right now. They're going to have to hope that there's a historical norm broken like there was in the past midterm, because if there isn't, Donald Trump's going to end up in the White House.
I will tell you, no one except for Tom Cruise in Top Gun likes being in the danger zone. Harry Etten, thank you.
Fucking loser. Oh my God. What a loser. These guys are the biggest corny chodes. You know what a chode is? You know what a chode is? You should look up what a chode is, folks. It's not a flattering place to be. All right? A chode. I don't think I could say that. I don't think I could say that. I don't think I'd get through the Laura censor I think she'd be furious with me if I told you what a chode was on my show. She doesn't like the language. Well, that's just, tough. I told her I just can't be something I'm not. Like I'm not. Look, I always get this, and like my guest is gonna come on, like he's saying the same thing. I always get stuff. Like I was talking to this guy who is in state government, North Carolina, the other day, and he's like, "Oh my God, you are not at all what I thought you were gonna be." Like you play a Les Paul, all right. You have a silver jubilee half stack. You have a filthy mouth. You are you you are not what I expect. I'm like, what did you think you were gonna get? Poindexter and the pocket protector? Okay, like it's not like you can't be good at math and be like not be a nerd, a loser. Like, come on, man. That's the 90s, man. That's the culture idea from the 90s when you couldn't be like smart and cool. You had to be like a loser, right? Kids, let me tell you something about those smart nerds. All right? They are cool. They're going to end up with good lives, a decent paying job, and a gorgeous wife anyway. All right? So that'll be the cool kids are living their best lives in high school, and it's going to be over for them in 2 years. All right? All right. So let's take a break. Little hat tip to Philip Seymour Hoffman there. All right, look, folks. All right. Look, remember Event 201? Remember that? Bill Gates, World Economic Forum, and John Hopkins that ran pandemic simulation in October of 2019. Months later, COVID hit. Well, here we go again. It's October. We're on the verge of a historic election, and now there's a bird flu summit. Here's a playbook. It's the same. Create chaos, bring back lockdowns, perform medical tyranny. Wake up. There's this October surprise. Last time we were caught off guard, but now we have a proven solution to protect ourselves and our families. It's the Wellness Company created the medical emergency kit, and every family should have one in America. At least one. They're packed with life-saving meds like ivermectin, amoxicillin, even a Z-Pack. It's all backed by experts like Dr. Peter McCullough. Picture this. No more frantic searches for a doctor. No more emergency waiting rooms. Just a few clicks and this kit is delivered right to your front door. In times like these, having your medical emergency kit is a necessity. Protect your family and prepare now. Get your kit, head over to twc.health/TPP and use that code TPP to save yourself $30. All right. Don't wait until it's too late. Act now, take control, and ensure you're protected against whatever comes next. That's twc.health/TPP. I timed that perfectly. Whoop, whoop. Links also in the description. All right. All right. I'm glad they took the advice of me and my next guest, or my next guest and I. All right. And decided to make a kit that isn't putting a target on your back. Like it's a bug out situation. Shoot me and take my drugs because it's baby blue. All right. And of course, I'm talking about my buddy, Sean Parnell.
You're such a crazy person. You are in rare form today. I can see it. Look at you. You were calling somebody a chode 5 minutes ago.
These people are chodes, man. Dave Washman, did you see his Twitter feed? This freaking chode. These guys don't have an original thought in their head, Sean. They act like, oh, look at, the voter registration, the auto voter registration in Pennsylvania really out Republicans, as if he discovered it, as if he came up with it. They troll the Twitter feeds of smarter people, and then they take their ideas and then they mix those ideas with their bullshit and they push their propaganda. All right. Come on, man.
They have like, listen, I'm telling you, I know some of those people and I dealt with some of them and talked with some of them in the wake of 2020.
Yep.
And because I was desperately trying to get proof and word out that what was happening was very much illegal by state law in Pennsylvania. And no one really cared, number one. But more concerning than that somehow was that these very same people that you're talking about had really no idea how procedurally elections are supposed to work, and that was very clear within like 5 minutes of talking to them. So what they do is they troll other smarter people on Twitter and regurgitate their stuff to what, in many cases, a larger audience that they have, and they pass it off as their own. But it's very Rich, it's very dangerous when stupid people have huge platforms but pretend to be smart. That's a dangerous dynamic, because a guy like Elon Musk, he knows he's smart. But he also knows his limitations. He created 3 companies. Like, he clearly knows what's going on. He's not dangerous. The guy like me, who's like, might be a little bit of a knuckle dragger, but have common sense, but recognize what I am. Like, I'm not dangerous. It's the stupid person who has a platform that and influence are the ones that are dangerous. Like, another good example of this is Kamala Harris, one of the dumbest people to ever grace the top of the ticket in the history of this country. She's incredibly stupid, yet might be the most powerful person in the world. Not a good combination, man.
Oh, wow. That's just so perfect and so right on the money. And then they influence stuff. They influence public opinion. They can influence public policy, right? They can influence. I was just telling people before, David Giglio, right? He ran for office. He's on Twitter.
Yeah.
Pundit actually retweeted when he said that Democratic money manipulates the betting markets. Dark Democratic money actually does that. They don't care if they lose. They want the narrative. They don't care if they're they don't care if they're outside the money on the trade. They just don't give a shit. It's intended to push a narrative. And people attacked him for it while Pundit retweeted him, right? So think about that. And I don't know if they took down the retweet, but the like is there. And he screenshotted it just in case they did. So if it is down, he's got it. But it's just unbelievable, because you'll have people with these big audiences then go and say, oh, that's totally nuts. That's not true. It is true. And I mean, also, the bottom line is, and I'm trying to be nice here because some of them are really good people. It's just, look, think about some of these people who get into office based on that following and whatever, but they're not very smart. And then they get in and they're sitting on some committee, Sean, somewhere, and they're totally stupid. They don't understand anything about the topic they're talking about. When Mark Zuckerberg is a great example. When Mark Zuckerberg was called before Congress to talk about Zuckbucks and how he manipulated the election, which he did, right? They were totally clueless. When he and Jack Dorsey were brought up to the committee, called before Congress to talk about censorship and how this stuff works, totally clueless. When what's his name, who used to run CrowdStrike, was brought up in front of Congress to talk about the hack. Republican congressmen were so stupid, Sean. They didn't understand why his explanation that it wasn't Russia. It wasn't a hacker inside job. Russia could have taken screenshots. Well, they're so dumb. They don't understand. You can't take you don't get downloaded content attached to an email from screenshots. They're just so stupid. They didn't get it, or not stupid, but ignorant. You know what I mean? So it's just very dangerous, Sean. It's very dangerous. I want to talk about Pennsylvania and what's going on. There's a headline in Politico today about Eric Hovde in Wisconsin closing that race and closing it very quickly. The Democratic polling only has Tammy Baldwin up by 2, and that her lead evaporated in the last 2 weeks. Everybody knows now on both sides that McCormick, the same thing happened to him or began happening before Eric Hovde. Now the race is basically dead even. Like, it's very close, right? I want to play a clip from last night. I think McCormick put on, now, again, debates and the impact debates are certainly debatable, right? But man, he torched Bob Casey.
He definitely did. He did.
God. That was one of the worst debates, ass whoopings in a Senate debate I have ever seen. And it was. I was really impressed with Dave McCormick.
He was great. He was fantastic.
Wow.
Play the clip. I want to see.
Yeah. This is on immigration. Do you remember this? Okay.
This is the most important election of our lifetime. Our Our country is in trouble. Our Commonwealth is in trouble. We have wide open borders. We have a weak economy. America's going in the wrong direction, skyrocketing prices that are putting enormous pressure on most families. I'm a seventh-generation Pennsylvanian. I'm a political outsider. I'm a businessman. I'm a West Point graduate. I'm a combat vet from Iraq. I'm running because I want to make sure the America I love is available for my 6 daughters, for all of our children. Bob Casey is not just part of the problem. Bob Casey is the problem. Bob Casey's a weak leader. Bob Casey is a career politician. Bob Casey went to the Senate to change Washington. Washington changed Bob Casey. Bob's voted for wide open borders. He voted for sanctuary cities. He's voted against funding for the Border Patrol. He's voted for federal benefits for illegal immigrants. He's voted for all these wild spending bills under Biden and Harris, which have led to an increase in prices for working families. He's been soft on crime. He's been soft on China. He's voted for tax hikes on middle-class workers in Pennsylvania, and he's voted for tax cuts for millionaires in California and in New York. Bob Casey's actually voted for biological males to be able to compete in women's sports. So let's face it, Bob, you are a liberal. And this is not the Bob Casey you elected for office 30 years ago. We need common sense leadership that's going to secure the border, get our economy back on track, and keep America safe. Our Commonwealth deserves change. I'd be honored to get your vote, and I'd be honored to serve as your senator.
Mr. Casey.
All right, they interrupted him at the end too, which pissed me off.
Oh man, that makes me so mad. Like, the dude's finishing up. Just let him finish up.
Shut up. Right. That was his closing. And you know why they did it, Sean? You know why they did it? Dave came across as likable.
He did. And I'm telling you, he was passionate. He was smiling. And what I liked about that is that he took the fight to Bob Casey on his voting record.
Yes.
After his voting record. Because with these Democrats, especially in the state of Pennsylvania, where we are awash with fake moderate Democrats that get covered by the media all the time, they say one thing in public and then they vote a very different way. A perfect example of that, in addition to everything that Dave McCormick just laid out, is John Fetterman. He waves this Israeli flag, and you get these conservatives that are like, oh my God, is John Fetterman waking up? And I'm like, no, he's not. He voted against aid for Israel every single time it's come up in the Senate. So again, like these Democrats, you can't listen to what they say because they're pathological liars. You have to watch how they vote. And I love the passion, Rich. I mean, I think that's what people want. They want to know that their elected representatives at this phase in the game are just as outraged about things as they are, man. And then, like,
I agree.
Dave, I'm telling you, I've known Dave McCormick for a long time. And let me tell you, he has come a very, very long way after having run 2 Senate campaigns back to back in Pennsylvania, had an opportunity. I mean, he's from Pennsylvania, as you heard, a 7th generation guy. But he and Trump, first of all, like, not only are they copacetic now, like they've buried whatever beef that they have. I don't even know if they had beef outside of the primary in the Senate election in 22 and that Trump endorsed Oz, but the race was still separated by like 600 votes. I mean, it was razor thin. They buried that hatchet, and they are working extremely well together. And in this state, that really matters because it creates a synergy. Trump and McCormick are 2 very, very different Republicans, and they work well together. And people forget that Dave worked with Trump in the Trump White House. I mean, so I like this combo at the top of the ticket. I like that they're picking up steam, in October, 30 days to the election.
Right time. He's popping at the right time. Listen,
exactly. He's popping at the right time.
I think too, what you said, that Americans want their people who are running for office to be just as angry and just as like offended and outraged as they are. That's, I think, I said that it came across as likable, but the likability came from what I think it was sincere. It looked like sincerity. That outrage was legitimately sincere. Yes. I've obviously played the wrong clip. I was supposed to play that 1 second, but let me just play the one because you're right. You went after his voting record. When I watched this clip specifically and then the close specifically, like he just did right there, it reminded me of Rick Scott running against Mr. Astronaut and Mr. Moderate Bill Nelson in Florida. This guy could convince all the old Republicans in Monroe County and, parts of like very, very conservative Collier, Lee, right? Where they're just, it's ruby red. Yet he would still take away 15, 20% of that vote because of the Republican vote and because he was Mr. Moderate. And Rick Scott torched that moderate image. And he wasn't even very popular when he did it. His favorability wasn't great. However, Hurricane Irma did help to remake his image. But, you know, I started calling Rick Scott the giant killer because, I mean, he would take down Alex Sink, Charlie Crist, whatever, Krispy Kreme I was about to call him because that's what Laura and I used to call him. The guy, it's like he lives in Florida and has a fake tan. Like unbelievable, you know, like unbelievable. But so yeah, Laura actually came up with that name, Krispy Kreme, because he just like, you know, just looked like he was burnt all the time. You know, but basically, and she's right. Let's get real. Yeah, so he went after Bill Nelson's voting record. Like, look, this guy is pretending to be a moderate. He is not. And in the debates, he did what I think McCormick did. Here is immigration. Here's the real clip on immigration.
Of the weakness of Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, and Bob Casey supported them every step of the way. What chutzpah to run an ad on how tough he is on the border when he voted against funding for the Border Patrol. He ran an ad in front of the wall that he voted against. He voted for sanctuary cities. He voted for federal benefits for illegal immigrants. And the fentanyl crisis that's come across our border is the direct result of the weakness of Bob Casey not standing up to these terrible cartels. So this man has very little that he can say with credibility on the border. We have an enormous crisis. We learned just recently that 25,000 convicted murderers and rapists have come across the border. Absolutely, we need to send them home. We need to deport first and foremost those convicted criminals. We have hundreds of people that are on a terrorist watch list. We have made Americans less secure. We've made our country less secure. We made Pennsylvania less secure because of the weakness of Bob Casey and the Democrats on this issue. I will be strong on this issue on day one.
15.
Bang.
Oh, I loved it, man. I love the passion. I mean,
in the hands, it's the tri-state area, folks. It's the tri-state area. When you're truly pissed in the tri-state area and you're truly outraged, you use your hands, all right? You talk with your hands, and it's sincere. And then you have just Bob Casey there. He looks like he's like not from
my name's Bob Casey. He's like so boring.
Oh my God, he's a robot. He came across as a robot. I would think if you were, and you tell me, I mean, but if you're the Democrats and you've run for Senate, you know, like if you're in this position where you're falling dramatically, your opponent is rising dramatically. By the way, just the Susquehanna poll, which has been so favorable to Democrats this year, it has it absolutely, his bleed evaporated. It's gone. It's, you know, now, you see yourself in that position, in that pole position. Don't you think you need to put up a good debate performance?
Yes.
Like, don't you? Isn't your team like, Bob, it's all on the line here. You better put on a good debate performance because we're sliding fast. You gotta stem the bleeding, bro. You gotta stem the, and he goes out and acts like that. I mean, folks, you don't watch this debate. Oh
like, yeah, listen, I mean, first of all, you're right. And people who've listened to us talk or watch my show, they've heard me say Pennsylvania always closes late and fast, and you get a sense of where the state's breaking at this point in time in the race, and you see the fact that the race is tightening at the Senate level. Like, let's not even talk about the top of the ticket. You look at the race tightening between Dave, and what I mean by that is he's closing on Bob Casey. So that gives you a sense of how independents are breaking. The reason why I say that is because Democrats can win the state without a single Republican vote. Republicans, in order for us to win this state, you have to have moderate Democrats, working class Democrats, and you have to have independents. Otherwise, you can't win. Vote like Democrats have 350,000 more registered Dems than Republicans. Now we've cut their lead in half this cycle, but you see my point, right, Rich? You can see how independents are breaking late in this race, and if you are Bob Casey, you are petrified. Now, it's still going to be close, but what Dave has at the top of the ticket is the biggest turnout machine of our lifetime. I was just going to go
there next. Go ahead.
And like Dave is going to win traditional Republicans. Like in Allegheny County in Western Pennsylvania, let's just say Pittsburgh for people who aren't familiar with the counties. Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, in the suburbs of Allegheny County, that is, and a lot of people don't know this, but the most populous county in the state. Allegheny County, was very, very close. I can't recall if McCain won, but it was close. I can't recall if Romney won, but it was close. And I'm not even talking about the
No, they
city
lost
proper,
it.
but just
They lost. Yeah,
around.
they
But it was
lost.
close. It was
They lost.
close. There are a lot of those kinds of Republicans there that Dave McCormick is just going to win, and he's going to Trump at the top of the ticket is going to help him run up the score everywhere else.
Yeah, and outside of those burbs, it's a very interesting county, folks. Outside of those burbs where there's more affluent Republicans, outside surrounds them with what are like a different kind of suburb, right? And before you get into more rural areas, a different kind of suburb where they're like, think of the Pittsburgh steelworker, okay,
Yes.
or like a welder or something like, right? And they used to be Democratic, and they used to insulate an affluent Republican vote that George Bush won. Okay, so you could get McCormick to do really well with those more affluent voters, and then of course, guess what those other voters are now? Trump voters. And so this is what happened with Toomey. So Toomey looked like he was going down, right? I mean, McGinty was up in some polls 11 points. I just checked before we went on the show. I know that Toomey was down and he started to make a late break at the end, and you began to see a few, not many, but a few Toomey +1. You know what I mean? Like just a hit, Toomey was able to win the more moderate Republicans in some of these areas that are beginning to, they're like what Chuck Schumer, for every working class Western Pennsylvania voter we lose, we gain 3 in Philadelphia, in Delco or southeastern Pennsylvania. That's not really mathematically accurate, but I mean the idea is accurate. And Toomey held on to that southeastern Republican that's moving away from the party, and he held on to some of those affluent Allegheny voters. But Trump was on the ticket, and he got those blue collar Democratic, moderate Democrats that broke for Trump. I mean, he won like 14% of the Democratic vote in 2016. So 12 or 14, depending on what the exit polls, the voter validated studies afterwards. So, you're absolutely right. You really need both of these coalitions, and the fact that they're both on the ticket is like really bad news for Democrats this cycle.
And they're both working together.
And they're working together. And that's, you brought it up before. Why did Oz almost lose the primary, folks? Because he did what every Republican, I can't count how many times I have said this and tried to push this message. You cannot rely on 6 hours, 8 hours of voting to make up for, 25 days, whatever it may be in various states. Obviously, it's different. You have got to have a ground game and an early vote machine. McCormick had one in the primary against Oz, and he clapped Oz with early votes. And Oz barely made it up with the election day vote. Barely. It was very close. McCormick has always seen the value in making sure that votes are banked, and this is being done. There's been like some coverage of that, so like there's Democrats are keenly aware that McCormick is not like other Republicans. He is trying to bank votes.
Well, I mean, listen, and it's working. Like, I know something about this,
Sure. Go ahead. I'll let you go ahead.
As of yesterday, Democrats had banked 900,000.
Yeah.
Well, they had 900,000 ballot requests. Now, Republicans had just over 400,000. You might be saying, oh, holy crap, the Democrats have a huge lead, but that's not the whole story.
No.
If you go back to 2020, Republicans had requested, and keep in mind, this is at the height of COVID, 447,000 ballots, had requested and filled out 447,000 ballots, mail-in votes. That was at the height of COVID. Democrats had over 1.2 million. So Republicans are almost eclipsing where they were in 2020 at the height of COVID, and Democrats are down by over 350,000. Now, 30 days to Election Day, they're going to do everything they can to make that up. They're going to have to spend a ton of money, but Republicans are keeping up with them, and not just keeping up with them, like banking votes at a higher clip than they've ever done before. In fact, Republicans have already eclipsed the 2022 total by 100,000 ballots. So like this is Democrats are still going to have an advantage, but Republicans are really making it up fairly quickly. And the reason why I cited 2020 is that in order for the Democrats to win in a presidential cycle in Pennsylvania, they almost have to have the floor of mail-in votes that they had in 2020. They have to have that. And if they don't get there, they're going to have to try to turn those people out. And I'm sorry, Democrats it's a hell of a lot harder to turn out Democrats than it is Republicans. But we will see. It'll be close.
Yeah, just so people have an idea, a concept of what that means, right? That they were above 1.2, a little bit above 1.2. That's a 300,000 ballpark difference. The state was won by Joe Biden by less than 100,000 votes. Okay?
80,000, yeah.
Yep. Joe Biden won 3,458,229 votes. Donald Trump won 3,377,674. Folks, I really, maybe that's why Predict It right now is Trump +6 in Pennsylvania.
And Kamala is not Biden. Kamala is not Scranton Joe.
That Scranton Joe versus Canadian Kamala.
Yeah.
Listen, I'm not trying to be a prick. Mark Halpern brought this up too. Folks, let me give you a little trivia question. When was the last time a woman of color won a statewide election in Pennsylvania? And I'm not saying that it's values. It's just a matter of values. It's Mark Halpern brought that up. It's not even Barack Obama's a man of color. But he was Barack Obama. Yeah. All right. He was cool. All right. Whether you don't like Barack Obama out there, and I know
charisma.
Rich. Oh, Rich. He was a prick. You're a Republican. All right. Barack Obama was cool, man. He had swagger. He was cool. No drama Obama. I thought he was cool. I don't like his policies, but I thought
look,
chill.
I mean, he fakes it really well. He's the most divisive president of our lifetime, done extraordinary damage to this country. But listen, I came back from Afghanistan and he had just beat John McCain, gave that victory speech that was outside to like 100,000 people. And he's out there. And listen, I had just come back from the war, so not a whole lot of experience in politics. But I'm watching this speech in my office as a young captain. And he's talking about there not being red states and blue states, but United States. And I'm like, okay, I agree with that. 3 months later, I'm like, holy shit, this guy's destroying the country with Marxism. But initially he had charisma, you know, and man, most people. Kamala is a moron. She's an intergalactic level moron.
And he was smart. That's another thing.
Yes, he was
a good point. He was Barack Obama's a smart guy. Hillary Clinton's a smart woman. All right. Take away from them whatever else you want to take away. These are smart people. Hillary Clinton's a moron. I mean, Kamala Harris is a moron. She is a stupid person. All right. She couldn't even pass the bar, dude, at first. All right. So, I mean, come on. I mean, and I know the bar is not easy, but yeah, I know it's 116. I got to let you boogie here, but why don't you tell people what's going on this weekend? What you're doing? What are your plans? Yeah. You got some big plans.
I do. So the Trump team and Trump himself asked me to come and speak at the rally on Saturday, and not just speak, because I speak at most of his rallies, but run the entire section of the rally that talks about the resilience of the people of Butler County. And that's amazing because this is my home. This is my stomping ground. Like, I'm a Western Pennsylvania guy through and through. I love my home and I love the people here. And so it was just a tremendous honor to be able to do that. And this rally this weekend, just so everybody's tracking, it's going to be very different from what you're used to seeing. It's going to be very, very special. I think it's going to be very emotional in some ways because it's all about commemorating Corey Compertore's life and the folks, the two individuals who were wounded in Pennsylvania, commemorating the people of Butler County, the first responders who were kind of thrown into the fire, the police, local police and stuff. It's going to be powerful. And so you've got like Elon Musk is going to this rally tomorrow. JD Vance is speaking at 4:30. Trump is speaking at 5. This is setting up to be huge. I don't know, Rich. I mean, like, he did that rally. I think it was like late October of 2020. And I spoke at that too. The one where there were 60,000 people in Butler County. This one could be bigger. So it's going to be special though. It's going to be special and it's needed for this area.
Yeah, I mean, what's so important, obviously, is for the movement to show up and say, up yours, you know, and we're not afraid. You know, that is really what I told people earlier, that in the polling question this weekend for the national poll, and then we're polling Pennsylvania, which is interesting. The I wanted to add that assassination question we've been talking about, because I feel like, Sean, if in a month, right, from now, we're all, looking at the votes coming in and Trump wins, I feel like we're going to talk about how the assassination attempts were underrated and we didn't pay enough attention to the public's reaction. They want to constantly make us forget about these big stories within 48 hours of them happening, especially if they're bad for the administrative state's political vehicle, which is the Democratic Party. So the state-run media will try to just like get us, to move on and forget about it. I feel like when Trump wins, which, by the way, I don't know if you saw CNN, used to work for CNN, Alex Castellanos, he's an old school Republican guy. Somebody had asked him on Twitter, what can Trump do to win this thing? And he just wrote, I think he already has, right? So basically, if that is the case, then I feel like Alex is right. And we're going to all look back and say, this thing was won in September. This thing was won in August. This thing, when they took these shots at this guy, like that was never going to, like the fight image is going to be the 2024 campaign image. I really think that we tend to do that in this industry.
It's iconic, Rich. It's iconic. I'm telling you, it's iconic. And Trump, and look, it's just for those people who aren't from this state. I know this state, and Trump has a very special bond with people here.
Yeah,
and
he does.
And like he's the first Republican to win the state since George H.W. Bush. So the idea that like Trump is not strong in Pennsylvania is ridiculous. He is. And I don't know, Rich, I feel like there's something very special in the air. But then again, I don't put anything past these Democrats who will move heaven and earth to keep and retain power. So
they're cheaters.
Yeah,
you have to overwhelm them.
You have to overwhelm them. You have to overwhelm them. And that hopefully the call to action at this rally this weekend is just that. We've got to swamp the vote. We got it too big to rig. That has to be on the forefront of everybody's mind leading up to the home stretch of this election cycle.
Too big to rig. I wonder where he heard that from.
I came up with it right now.
Did you hear JD say whack a fraud? Did you hear that? Laura was like, "Oh my God,"
No, I didn't hear that.
And by the way, I got to send him this video of what is he called on? He's like this like popular gay TikToker, and he did this thing about JD, and he was like, "Oh my God," he's like, "That man does something to me." It's all, but again, like
why are you watching this?
I had said on the show, but somebody sent it to me because I had said on the show, like, don't think for a second that picture, like the Elmer Fudd versus Bugs Bunny thing, isn't going to resonate with people. It will, of course. All right. Don't forget, folks, Battleground Live at 5 on Rumble. Sean Show, 5 p.m. Monday through Friday. Don't miss it. And don't miss his speech on Saturday. You're going to obviously give a great speech, I have no doubt. And we'll see you soon, my friend. Good luck. Be safe. Thanks for coming
brother.
on.
See you later.
Anytime, brother. Anytime.
See you, man.
That's Sean Parnell, ladies and gentlemen. A great guy. Great guy. Honestly, the balls. The chutzpah. The chutzpah. Right? What a great clip by Dave McCormick. I didn't expect Dave McCormick to put up that performance. I just didn't. I didn't think... I don't know the guy. I really don't. So, I know of him. You wait in green rooms with people, that's War Room, a couple, that's it, so just didn't know him that well. And I didn't expect him to put up Sean's right. Like, that's such a good point that he made. I think that look, I tell people this all the time. Politics is still about human nature. And you just have to find out what it is that's appealing to that. We want to follow people who have the courage of their own convictions and the passion behind those convictions. Nobody wants to follow a deadbeat. Nobody wants to follow someone who doesn't have the courage of their own convictions. It's human nature, right? So when you see people that passionate and that's sincere, it has almost like a primal impact on people. And he struck the right chord. He really did. He struck the right chord. All right, 1:22. Let's take a real quick break, and then when we come back, we will. I need to go grab some water. That's all. But when we come back, we will do a little read, of course, pay the bills, and then get into your questions. Again, I think what's on the card is most definitely a national poll. I don't see why we're not going to be able to get out Pennsylvania as part of the Rust Belt poll. That I think this is a good weekend to do it. There won't be, we have the debate baked in. And if we start the interviews before this rally, then we should be able to get a little bit of we can have like a little picture of a before and after picture. Because Sean is right. There is this like connection with voters in Pennsylvania with Trump, and and Fetterman has brought this up as well. John Fetterman thinks that Harris is going to lose Pennsylvania. He said it multiple times. I mean, behind closed doors, he says she's cooked, but the polls are very close. And Sean's right. They will do anything and everything. And don't forget Josh Shapiro, the man himself, who said, don't worry, Allegheny County will find the votes for Joe Biden. While he had the job as the top cop in the state, could you imagine such an irresponsible, draconian statement, to make? Draconian is not even the word. It's not arrogance, the audacity for the top cop in the state to say, no matter what the election day margin is, Allegheny County is going to find the votes for Joe Biden. So this is who Trump and McCormick are up against. All right. That being said, if you're Josh Shapiro and if you're Gretchen Whitmer and you want to be president, you'd like to do it when you're young, you're vibrant, you don't want to wait around forever. Would you help Kamala Harris win the White House in 2024? Would you go above and beyond? Why? You're going to challenge an incumbent president in a Democratic primary? We all know how that works. Look what they did to Robert Kennedy. Look what they did to Dean Phillips, Marianne Williamson. You cannot even get on a ballot. They'll destroy you. They'll destroy your supporters. And that's against a senile old man everybody knew was senile and only got rid of when he collapsed during a debate. The way they use people is just, to me, and don't get me wrong, this is not only Democrats, but my God, this must be the worst offense I've ever seen in politics. Drag a senile old man out of retirement to run a fabricated campaign, pushing nothing but lies, because eventually history is going to write. Someone's going to write it. And they're going to look back and they're going to see that Joe Biden did nothing but push lies. So actually, Donald Trump did not say that about Charlottesville. That was in his intro video. Donald Trump did not do this during COVID. Donald Trump did not do this and he ran on a lie from his basement with his wife holding onto his elbow so he wouldn't fall over. I mean, God, Jill, what kind of a person are you? I'm sorry. Look, I don't like to get typically like to get personal, but as a man, a married man, oh my God. At least I can take heart in knowing that Laura would never exploit me like that. And then when they're finally done with him, they throw him away like a $5 hooker in Bangkok. Disgusting. And he'll be disgraced. His legacy will be disgraced. Why did Joe Biden only serve one term? Why did President Joseph R. Biden only serve one term? Because he was walking the hallways of the White House and the resident side of the White House shitting his pants and he couldn't stand up long enough to do a debate. He's the only president to be removed for being senile. They destroyed him. They destroyed his legacy. Hell, if you're Joe Biden, honestly, let me ask you a question, because he hasn't lifted much of a finger to help her. If you are Joe Biden, who would you trust the future of your son and your brother with all of these corruption investigations surrounding them, sentencing, waiting for Hunter? Who would you trust your son with? The woman who stabbed you in the back, like Brutus and Cassius? They did. She did. Or would you maybe think, at least the guy's a stand-up guy? I'm telling you, if I was Joe Biden, at this point, the father in me would take over. And I would pick up the phone and call Donald Trump. Hey, if I do this, is my boy going to be okay? Can I get your word as a man, as a father, that my boy's going to be okay? Because Kamala Harris can't understand that. She's childless. She has no idea what it means to have that responsibility. She is just clueless. All Kamala Harris has in the world to care, the only person Kamala Harris has in the world to care about is herself. Oh, but she's married. Her husband banged the nanny and killed the baby. Give me a break. This is a woman who slept with a fat old married man so she could get elected to office. Come on. Why is this taboo and we're not allowed to talk about this stuff? Sure, Trump slept with a lot of women. Yep, okay, whatever. He's called, there's a name for that, all right? It's called a man. I haven't yet heard, we've heard everything else about Donald Trump. Fake rape stories, fake golden showers in Moscow. I mean, come on. Models he slept with, Billy Bush tapes. I haven't heard one story about him aborting a baby because of it. Haven't heard one story about him cheating on Melania and then paying to kill the baby so Melania didn't find out. That's the Harris family. Could you imagine? Think about that for a second. I'll tell real talk. And I mean, you guys know me well enough to know I will always pull the race, but as the father, I'll always pull the race fairly and accurately. That is my job. But as the father of a soon to be, well, now she is teenage daughter, young teenage daughter. There's no way in hell I want a woman like Kamala Harris to be her role model. I want my daughter to make her way in life on her talents, not on her looks. And she is a beautiful girl. I don't want her to take advantage of that. I don't want her to use that in that way. I would be ashamed. Utterly ashamed. It's probably why you don't hear Kamala Harris's father talk about her very much, with the exception of the op-ed he wrote when she was running for vice president in 2020, in which she said, basically, you shame me. You shame me. You shame all Jamaicans. We're not all pot-smoking losers like you made yourself out to be just to be cool in an interview. Could you imagine? Look how much we heard about the late Mary Trump criticizing her brother. You haven't heard one word about Kamala Harris basically disowning his own daughter. I mean, Kamala Harris's father basically disowning his own daughter in an op-ed publicly. Not one word. We've heard everything else, like I said, about Donald Trump, but you've not heard hide or hair from the mainstream media about Kamala's husband destroying his family because he banged the nanny and killed the baby. Could you imagine if that was the Republican? Folks, the media is going to be the end of us if we let them. They're going to be the end of us. They're the most god-awful people in this country, the most negative presence, the most negative force, the most negative actor in this country, the most destructive force in this country. Don't talk to me about divisive Donald Trump. Nobody is more divisive than the corporate big media. Nobody, nothing, no entity, no single person, nothing. Hands up, don't shoot. Never happened. Tawana Brawley, Duke Lacrosse, never happened. This led to the burning of cities, all right? The destruction of businesses. George Floyd died of a freaking fentanyl overdose, not a knee on his neck. That guy's rotting in jail. The city was half burnt to the crisp to the ground. Trayvon Martin, self-defense. The Charlottesville hoax, fake. The Russia hoax led to the shooting of the House Majority Whip, fake. And nearly the assassination of the former president and current Republican nominee for president, who is absolutely at this point a slight favorite at the least to win this election. If he wins Pennsylvania, he's going to win the election. He is currently up in Pennsylvania. They're disgusting. They're evil. They should be criminal. I mean, what they do should be. We need to just drop the because they're hurting people. They don't care about all of the academics. They don't care about all of the federal law enforcement agencies and everyone for over 2 decades plus now, telling them almost 3 decades, telling them they cannot cover school shootings and mass shooting events the way that they do because they act as a contagion and leads to the death of more people. And by the way, the contagion event is more deadly. They don't give a shit. They don't care how many kids die. Listen up, Sandy Hook. They don't give a shit about your kids being killed. They don't care. Parkland, they don't care. They're leftist fanatics who don't agree with the Second Amendment and push these stories so that there can be political pressure to remove the Second Amendment or hinder or neuter the Second Amendment. They don't care how many of your children die in the process. That is just a fact. I'm sorry. True story. It's a fact. Every editor's been told, every corporate head has been told, they don't give a shit. They inspire mass shootings, they do it on purpose, and they do it to get rid of the Second Amendment. Period. And if your kid gets their brains blown out in the process, well, hell, that's just a casualty on their march to their ends. Because as always with them, the ends justify the means. They don't care your kid took what he thought was a Percocet and died because cartels are enabled and allowed to ship drugs across the border. Trump is against the current trade regime. The current trade regime enables drug trafficking. They loved it. Mexican, Colombian, all of the cartels absolutely loved the trade regime when it began to rise in the 1990s. It meant it was easier to get drugs into the greatest consumer of drugs in the world, the United States of America. Politicians not only allowed it to happen, they enabled it to happen. Some are afraid, some are just corrupt. And in fact, they decided, let's make a business out of it. And there's an entire industry, an entire illegal immigration industry, from lawyers to coyotes, and they all work together to make money off of the trafficking of human beings and drugs. They're no better than the military-industrial complex, who has been making money off of the drug trade and wars and death and despair forever. It's always been like this. Had Frank get those drugs in the United States, by the way, during the Vietnam War. How do you do it? Oh, that's right. He paid the army to look the other way and CIA officers to look the other way while he stuffed the coffins of dead Americans with bricks of heroin from the Golden Triangle. Before the United States invaded Afghanistan, 180 metric tons of opium was exported and opioids products were exported from Afghanistan. 2 years after the invasion, thousands. By the time Trump told the National Security Council to start to make a plan to withdraw from Afghanistan because it was over, your game was up, it's over, fun time is over, 9,000 metric tons. At least the Taliban executed opium exporters, poppy growers. Not the U.S. They come in there and suddenly there's a miraculous boom of heroin being exported from Afghanistan. It's an accident, you think? Well, then you're stupid. All enabled. All enabled. I mean, it's got to, I mean, at some point, it's either got to end or it's going to have the intended effect. You know, it's that simple, guys. It's that simple. Let's take a real quick break. I'm going to get a drink of water. 30 seconds. We'll come back. We'll do the read. We'll get to your questions. Stay tuned. Don't forget, if you like the video, subscribe, share far and wide. But of course, the best place to follow us is right there. People's Pundit. peoplespundit.locals.com, peoplespundit.locals.com, People's Pundit Daily. People's Pundit Daily is still there, and you can still use for all of the election returns. Of course, the live election results on election night will, in fact, be on People's Pundit Daily that we will be using to talk about it. I'm getting all sorts of like, hey, let's do this, let's do that, let's can you come on the show for? We are doing our own thing on election night. That's what you guys pay for. That's what you guys want. We are not going. I don't mind if during a break for us, I pop on for a few minutes and say something. We are not going to try to juggle a million different things. Not this time. No way. All right. That's why you got to sign up. Don't miss it. That's why you got to sign up. All right. We'll be back in 30 seconds. All right, folks, who believes the jobs numbers, right? With all the uncertainty in the world today, it's no surprise that people are looking for protection, right? Maybe even diversification. If you have ever thought about protecting some of your retirement with gold and silver, or you just want to diversify your portfolio, then the folks at Freedom Gold USA definitely are the place to check out. Look, what I like about Freedom Gold is that they really do have the philosophy that they want you to have as much information as you need to make a confident decision, to feel good in that decision. All right. And that's what they're going to do for you. All right. Whether you call the number on the screen or you go to the website, get in touch with them, find out about all their greatest deals. I'm going to tell you about one right now. One of them, obviously, is what we do every month, reading of the prize pool. It's like a raffle. Somebody's going to win some free currency, and that is always a win. You can save $500. You get a credit on if you open a new gold or silver IRA. All right. And there's a lot of other deals that you can definitely go and choose from. But if you are a viewer or a watcher of People's Pundit, right, inside the numbers, then they have reduced the introduction commitment, which in some houses is 50 grand, 20 grand, 10 grand. Even here, it's 5 grand. But they've reduced it for viewers only $500, and you will be put into a prize pool, and you will be eligible to win our monthly giveaway, all right, which we have. And we have 2 winners usually a month we've had so far, which is absolutely outstanding and awesome, and I love to see it. All right, so give them a call, 888-279-3592. That's for us, 888-279-3592. Still couldn't hurt to say, hey, the People's Pundit sent me. Or you could just go to their website, freedomgoldusa.com/rich, freedomgoldusa.com/rich to see what else you qualify for. Again, Freedom Gold, 888-279-3592. Go get yourself in the running to win some free gold or silver. And by the way, regardless of the reduction to the opening commitment, you're still going to get free shipping and insurance on every order. That's incredible. Just incredible. All right. With that said, let's get to some of your questions, shall we? And while we're at it, I just wanted to see. I didn't finish the. I just, with everything going on, I literally just forgot. That's just the truth, folks. I literally just forgot. But I'm curious. I would like to see where we're at with something. I wanted to run that voter file analysis. And as you can see here in my main hub, that was one of my other ones. I want to show you something in my main hub. As you can see, there's actually more in the database there where it gets built every day. It gets bigger and bigger every day, right? Voters, consumers, contributors, movers. All right. So I want to be able to target recent movers off the bat. All right. So Sometimes I want to do that, and I want to do what's called deduping or a match or data append, and I want to see whether or not there are people on one list that's been flagged because of a recent change of address, for instance. I want to see that, or some other data point that I'm trying to match against. All right, so it's always good to have that right at my fingertips, and that's why we're always that's why this one's bigger than the other one. The other one is built for a project specifically. All right, so this one is a much larger multi-state, multi-level database, which means I have voter data overlapped with voter motor data, I guess, right? And then contributor and donor, right? So I want all of that overlapped. I'm just curious about something. All right. So yesterday, all right, I'm going through these different states, finding out low prop, no prop numbers. And the numbers are huge. And the voter registration law in Pennsylvania, I told you the auto voter registration law was absolutely going to help Republicans. But there's something interesting about it. And that is like, if you go to, I may break this right now because I have something. Let me just I have something querying, which means it can put a lot of pressure on the database. So I hope this doesn't crash when I go to do this. But what I'm doing right now is basically saying I'm creating a database query. And what I'm saying is during the last 4 cycles, I want you to look for the voted column. And then I want you to look for the value. I don't want to include primaries. I want you to do a frequency of 2, at most 2. So what I'm saying is no more than 2 out of the last 4 elections do I want to see these voters vote. Okay. I'm going to run this. It's massive. You're going to see just how many people don't vote, which is insane, but it's true. I hope it doesn't crash. There it is. As you can see the number. This is the state of Pennsylvania. All right. The state of Michigan is 1.7. And Michigan's smaller by population than Pennsylvania. All right. And if we run the count, we run the analysis report, this is why there's still Democratic registrations that are votes for Republicans. Okay. Hang on one second. As it loads, it's a very big database. It's not going to load instantly. All right. Especially with that other query going on, which is basically pulling every single person from the consumer and voter files. All right. That are either no voter history whatsoever or a designated voter history that I'm looking for. All right. And it's very large, right? So when taking all of them and then looking at the rest of the attributes attached to their voter record to see who they are and how they would vote if it was in fact done. All right. So we may need to wait a second here. And while we do, let's go to the question bank. Locals, let's go to you first. All right. Let me go all the way to the top. D. Wong. Some of these are just going to be comments, and that's cool. During the Trump-Harris debate, should Trump have mentioned the Hunter Biden laptop news censorship in response to the election being stolen? Also, should there not be wider outrage at the... Well, let me take that first one. When you say the election is rigged, when Donald Trump says the election is rigged, by the way, you see this? We'll get over in a second. When you see the election, say the election is rigged, you will appeal to a much broader audience if you discuss the various ways in which it was in fact rigged, indisputably, which media censorship, social media censorship, presidential debate commission censorship, all down the line. I mean, that stuff is without a doubt. Oh, the partnership between the state and corporations, that which we talked about with Jonathan. I always do that. We talked about with Steve Turley on Wednesday. Those are all indisputable facts. And when you say the election is rigged, if you talk about it more in the sense of like how Tucker talks about it, right? Laws were changed. Laws were broken. Sean is right. State law was not followed. Verification procedures, there were just wholesale moratoriums on them, right? By executive fiat, or worse, by like local supervisor of elections just deciding they want, or county clerks doing whatever the hell they want to do, like Wisconsin, where they said it is okay to claim indefinitely confined status for COVID-19. That is not true. That was illegal, and yet they did it anyway. All right. So stuff like that. If you appeal to them, and if you talk about that, like you had just mentioned, the laptop story in a broader context, then absolutely yes, it will resonate more. If you talk about votes going overseas, like Rudy Giuliani, and being changed by the Chinese or whoever the hell, I don't even know what he said. I don't remember. That is, of course, crazy and incorrect. And because you're only talking about it in that context, those voters who heard that, and you know, the people who made those accusations, this is why you did us, the rest of us who cared about the legitimate, incredible investigation. You painted us all with the shit brush, and then now when anybody like Donald Trump tries to bring it up, they get painted with the shit brush too, and that's all your fault. Lynn Wood, I'm looking at you. Sidney Powell, I'm looking at you. You know, et cetera, et cetera. But yes, so the answer to that is yes. Also, should there not be wider outrage that the Democrats actively promoted the BLM riots in 2020 to create a perception of chaos in order to get the votes of the seasick voters? I don't know that you should focus too much on that. I think we're beyond that at this point. Unfortunately, there should be a reckoning, of course, but you know, Americans want to look forward more than backward, so you have to pick and choose your battles when you're doing that. Why else have we why else have we since not rioted over cops killing black men? Because it's still happening. That's a good point. The media just would not cover it in 24 because the Dems are the incumbents. You're absolutely right. Yes. So I know that was written in the form of a question, but you're right. You answered your own question 100%. That's a good point. D1, good stuff. How are Cal and McCormick looking? We went over McCormick. I don't know Cal much. And of course, we're going to poll ourselves. We're going to poll the Senate race this weekend. I don't know how Hung Cal's looking. I can only rely on the public polling that we have seen. I suspect that the Washington Post poll is too Democratic, but I don't think Hung Cal is in a great position. But I would not be surprised if it was much closer. Then again, with those new vote numbers, I'm telling you, the polls are going to screen those people out. You are the masters. You're the captains of your own ship. You're the masters of your fate. Invictus, you know, so do it. You can do whatever you want. All right, folks? You can do whatever you want. You have the power. You can change anything and everything. The numbers are there. You just have to mobilize them. Don't have a question. Just appreciate everything you do, Rich. CCO. Thank you. Thank you, my friend. Appreciate that. Need a daily dose of Barris in the white pill liquid just to get through the black pill fog that gets blown in the face of the American people. Ryan, thank you, Ryan. It is, man. I mean, it's like I say that there is we are the captains of ships navigating a sea of misinformation on a daily basis. That is the life of an American political news consumer. Firstly, Duck Roy Cooper and Josh Stein. I mean, obviously you wrote Duck, but you mean something else. Secondly, and this is Kevin. Secondly, last week on Battleground, you two talked about forming a new group of untouchables to dismantle the deep state. After this hurricane response, I imagine the support for this has increased substantially among the base. I think that the Republican base would wholeheartedly support that. Absolutely, I do. And we'll get to that graphic in a second. Let me get through locals and we'll get to that graphic. What is the distinction between Project Norwal and Cambridge Analytica? They pretty much look like similar operations to me. Both utilize deep data to micro-target voters. I've heard people say that Narwhal data was provided with consent, but this explanation seems to misunderstand the concept of deep data and its collection. I totally agree with you, Leafy Bug. Absolutely. That is a BS excuse to get, and for people who don't know what Leafy Bug is talking about, Mitt Romney had Project Orca. That was their get out the vote super secret get out the vote, which I actually did have a small part to play in. It was a joke. I said it was a joke at the time. It was an attempt to do what Democrats do, only working with Democratic entities and thinking that you will get away with that. And not at all as sophisticated as Democrats were doing. And they worked with Microsoft to build the app, and Microsoft obviously crashed. It was obviously intentionally sabotaged. Mitt Romney's a freaking idiot, and so is everybody who worked on his campaign. They're the dumbest people on planet Earth. Narwhal. Narwhals kill orcas. So, get it? Narwhals kill orcas. So, Barack Obama's team named their project Project Narwhal. And it was the beginning of what we now know to be the data-driven get out the vote operation using consumer, social, whole bunch deep data, right? To go after and micro-target voters. Cambridge Analytica was painted as some shadowy project and shadowy group run by Steve Bannon. And oh my God, be scared. It's spooky. And they took data that didn't belong to them to target voters without their consent. When you click the consent button on Facebook, you gave Project Narwhal your consent. It's a lie, Leafy Bug, a total lie. And everyone knows Google powered Narwhal. Exactly. Am I wrong to say that Cambridge Analytica's principal crime was that it helped elect the wrong candidate? No, you are absolutely correct. I've actually recently, well, I don't know if I should say this. It was a conversation in confidence. There may be some there may be an effort to have legislation that is tailored toward protecting the data, like the consumer data, and not allowing corporations to use it to benefit one party. And I recently just spoke to somebody about this. We'll see if that would be Senate legislation, by the way. We'll see if they get the, they'll see if they get the behind the door interest to do this, right? We'll see. I hope so. What are your thoughts on the hurricane response in the election in North Carolina? I lived for a very long time in Florida, and I heard nobody talking, by the way, and I know I'm going off a little bit. Bear with me. I'll get there. I heard nobody talking about the credibility of polling during a hurricane, even though it would be targeted in Republican areas like the Panhandle, right? Or parts of southwestern Florida, which had very Republican votes. And, nobody really cared about whether or not that would impact polling. And now all of a sudden people care because Trump is up in the Sun Belt. Even though, by the way, it didn't disproportionately hurt blue areas. It's just totally bullshit. Ridiculous. Double standard bullshit. I think that these things don't have that much of an impact as we make it out to be. I don't think huge chunks of voters in North Carolina are going to vote for Trump because Roy Cooper has bungled he's botched the response to the hurricane. I just don't. I don't think Chris Christie delivered the election to Barack Obama because he gave Barack Obama a hug on the tarmac when Obama came to New Jersey after Superstorm Sandy. All right, I just don't buy that. That's a Geraldo Rivera hot take from Geraldo. I just think that in the end, North Carolinians are going to vote their values, and they're going to vote who they think is best to handle the issues that they care most about. Besides voting, if you had one piece of advice for everyone listening, what is one thing we can do to bring this home? You talking about for Trump and MAGA? So you're talking about get out the vote? Well, I mean, that really depends on where you live, but the best thing you can do is convince, if you're on the right, the best thing you can do is convince your low prop families and friends that lean towards your political persuasion that their vote does in fact count and that they have to do it this time, or then their worst fears that they think right now that the system is rigged, their vote doesn't matter. That isn't the case right now. But if they do not vote this election, it will be in the future. It will be. And they have a responsibility to their family and their loved ones to have their voices heard. Trying to think of what the October surprise could be. It will be Trump's emails. The Trump campaign was hacked by Iran. They are going to release them. There are things like Trump's medical records in there, discussions on legal advice and counsel and the indictment stuff. There are things said about his competition that will try to divide the Republican Party. For instance, calling Ron DeSantis names, things like that. Trump himself will not be in those emails because Donald Trump does not do email. He doesn't. It will be secondhand, right? Hearsay, because Trump has always been the guy who's never going to be caught in a text message or an email. He's just not. But it will be, thoughts on the possibility of whether the so-called apprentice tapes exist. I believe if they existed and they were what they said they were, let me put it this way, then we would have already have gotten them. All right. I don't know that they care about waiting till the end here. I really don't. All right. So, and let me actually give me 1 second. I know we're running out of time. I got to blast through super chats. I just need a sip of water, and I'll tell you what this is. All right. Among the low props, all right, you can see that they are profiled to be more democratic. Why is that? Because long time ago, when they still voted, they voted Democratic. It's the state of Pennsylvania. All right. And a state like Pennsylvania is probably the perfect example of this. Yet, when you look at the rest of the demographics, you will see that they are, in fact, not that liberal at all. All right. It's almost completely split by gender, by sex, that as the rest of the state. It is roughly 52-48, 53-47. Okay. So it is very, again, by sex at least, very representative. However, when you look at household income, among those we actually do know, it's not. All right. You have a lot of self-made people who make in their household over 100 grand, but not more than 150,000 a year. All right. And these can be, this is household income to family income. And look at where the rest of it is. Overwhelmingly below 100,000. When you add, I know those all look like they're very small numbers, but when you add them up, you will see that they're actually far more than those who make over 150,000. All right. Married, about a quarter we know are married. About less than that we know are single. Most, of course, we don't. We're inferring some are single. We're inferring more than twice, 3 times that amount are married, which tells you about the unknown. If we can infer 3 times the number are married than are single, then we can assume pretty safely that the unknown is going to be extremely, extreme. It's going to be more married. All right. Obviously, it is very white. It is less African American than the electorate overall. All right. By education, completed college is only 20%. Completed graduate is only 2.5. High school 13, unknown again 63. But when we can look and we know what the other numbers are, obviously you can see that that is going to tilt more towards some college and below. All right. By religion, we don't know them all. Obviously, about a little less than a third. We can't tell from the different attributes, but we do know more than 4 in 10 are Protestant. 2 in 10 are Catholic. Sound about right? It does. Right. So this tells you that these low prop voters themselves are definitely more Republican, or they are much more rich targets for Republicans than for Democrats. So again, if Mr. I don't have an original thought in his head actually had access to this level of analysis, then he would have known this when the law was first passed. But instead, because he doesn't, people like me, we're all alone out in left field saying this is going to help the Republican Party, not hurt it. Why did Democrats do it? They did it because they were more confident in their ability to register their voters than they were than Republicans and their ability. They thought that they had such a huge turnout and registration advantage, right? The ability to register and turn out. that they would be able to disproportionately register those voters and get those voters motivated and get them to the polls. Because that's the important part. It's auto registration. They were willing to take the bullet on more Republicans being added to the rolls because they felt that they had the ability, not Republicans, to get them to the polls or get them to hand in and mail back their ballots. What they didn't count on, I don't think, is Trump surviving everything and then being the Republican nominee. They didn't count on Dave McCormick putting this much money behind a get out the vote operation. He's put a lot of money, and groups supporting him have put a lot of money. Groups supporting Trump have been balls to the wall for a while. All right. So while we're at this point, Harris is cooked in the Sun Belt. Trump just needs one more Rust Belt state to win. Yes, that is true. And I mean, is it possible she plucks off a Sun Belt state? Yeah, it is. But again, if Trump wins Pennsylvania, it's over anyway. She'd have to run the table. Could you imagine her running the table in the Sun Belt and losing the Rust Belt? I can't. I keep on hearing Dems are trying to collect 9 million votes from people living abroad when there are a record 2.3 people living abroad. Any truth to this? There's always this. Now, that being said, they will try to collect change of address ballots that are overseas. And that's why you're going to have more of them than you do actual people living overseas. And they will try to do it. But again, folks, Democrats have always tried to collect overseas ballots. Always. It used to actually work in favor of Republicans because the most people that were overseas obviously were what? Military. So, Republicans won the overseas ballots. That has changed in recent years. Excuse me. That has changed in recent years, and we'll see. I just don't think we're talking about that many. In Pennsylvania, by the way, a state like Pennsylvania, there are. Again, what I'd say to that is focus on the task at hand and none of that will matter. I mean, look at the number. Look at the number that you just cited. 2.3 million living abroad, right? They want 9 million overall. I mean, come on, they're not going to get that. But 2.3 living abroad. Look at how many voters are no and low prop voters in the state of Pennsylvania alone. Talking about 2.3 alone in the state of Pennsylvania. 2.4 actually, almost. The regime likely telling the 82nd Airborne, 82nd at Brad, that they can't help win Western North Carolina, even though the division wants to, like 82nd did during Katrina, and leaving those people to die because that regime is in North Carolina is R+13, is a special kind of evil. Yeah, it is. I mean, it's kind of the rant I was doing before. I agree. Crew kid. Ron, people think that Florida is in play. People that think Florida is in play are nuts. They're nuts. I know it could be my bias, but I'm seeing more open support for Trump in Orange County than I've ever seen. Ron, Rubio +2, DeSantis +8. Go. I mean, I'm not pulling the shit out of my ass, folks. Go to RCP. Forget everybody else. Don't you dare look at 538. Go to RCP. Go back and look at the polling in Florida. I mean, God. Go back to 2010. Start in 22 and go back to 2010. You tell me if anybody but a handful of us. You got the Tyson Group. He's a native state pollster. Okay? You got the Tyson Group. You got me. Right? What else? Who else? Trafalgar does all right in Florida. I really thought that. Who else? That's it. Mason Dixon doesn't even poll it well anymore. Who else? I mean, God, folks, there aren't that many. People blow the state of Florida. The New York Times sucks at polling the state of Florida. Ann Seltzer has done okay in some elections, not all. All right. I was in Door County, Wisconsin for a wedding. Trump signs everywhere. Harris signs limited to in rich enclaves and second homes. Door went Biden in 2020, right? Yes. Door went to Trump in 2016. Door went to Biden by like 40 votes in 2020. And actually, I can look it up right now. I got it right in front of me. Door is that little county that runs, no, it was more than that. Door is that little county, folks, that runs off of the edge of Wisconsin. Let's show them that, actually, if you don't mind, Chris. Let's do that. Here's 2020's results in Door County. There it is. Okay. I had it right. I happen to have Pennsylvania right in front of me, so I just clicked on Wisconsin too. This little finger that hangs off of the eastern region of Wisconsin is Door County. Trump won it. It's a very small county. It is a swing along with, by the way, Sauk. All right. Sauk, by the way. There you go. That was like 500 votes. Door County was won by Joe Biden by less than 2 points. 300 votes. Less than 300 votes, actually. 290 votes, roughly. That's it. It is a swing county. So is Sauk, and of course, so is Juneau. Yet Juneau County went for Trump by 30 points. Juneau County, until 2020, has predicted the winner of every statewide presidential election since when? Go back and look. There's some trivia. Juneau County is one of the 19 nationwide bellwether counties, and it went for Trump by nearly 30 points, and he lost the state. Okay. For the Row Goody Fund. Aw, thanks, Cynic in Chief. Thanks, buddy. I'll tell him that. He'll be home, too, in about an hour and 20 minutes. Miss my little Row. Miss my little man. So proud of him. He's a year younger than everybody in his class. It's a lot on a child that young, but he's so smart. He had to go. So proud of him. I know it's tough. He's my little champion. Hopefully, I'll have time to go get him from the bus stop today. I love it. I wait at the bus stop. He comes down. Daddy! With his big book bag on this tiny little kid. My little champion. My little champion. Morning Joe said this morning that not all the votes will be counted in PA on election night. Do you think you'll be able to make a call on 11/5? It depends. We'll see. We have to know. We'll just have to see what remains outstanding versus what Trump's margin is. Okay. Now, yeah, that's what we're going to have to do. Now, the bottom line is we need to know how many votes are outstanding. And this is the problem with Pennsylvania still. While there was a major win for Republicans and election integrity, when the judges said and held up that you cannot count the votes that have either incorrect dates or no dates at all. Major win. However, we still don't have the election day guideline procedures like we have in the state of Florida, where every supervisor of election countywide needs to let you know. The site must report to the Secretary of State's office by 7:30 Eastern Standard Time how many votes you got back. They're going to play with that shit. Watch. Yank Media. Rich Barris is peak masculinity. For sure. For sure. And I'm not afraid of it. I'm not afraid of it. They can kiss my ass. There's nothing wrong with being a man. There's nothing wrong with being alpha. There's nothing wrong with what they call toxic masculinity. They're going to be begging for toxic masculinity one day. Begging for it. Maybe I'll lend it. Maybe I won't. How about that? What are the final results from your Nevada poll? Listen, I wish that they would let me release it, but I will just tell you. I think they will, but by the time they do, it'll be freaking stale. Trump +3. I want to poll it again. I would love to poll it again. He has a 2-point lead in Clark County. 2.5 points, actually. 70% of the vote. Even if I'm off in Clark County and he loses it by like 2 or 3 points. he still can eke out the election because he's ahead in Washoe by 5. So actually, no, I'm sorry. I had that backwards, I think. But in any event, there's like no way to lose. With Trump performing that well in Nevada, there's just no way. And honestly, I think I'm understating his rural vote. It always happens in Nevada polling. The rural vote is overwhelmingly Trump. It didn't seem to be that overwhelming. It looked more like Lombardo's margin in the polling we did in 22. Lombardo still won. He still eked it out. Kendra Goodwin, welcome to the show. Welcome to the show. Thank you for the new members. Oh, you gifting stuff? Woo, woo. Nice. Serious. Husband being laid off by IT DEFCON. Anyone know of any IT senior Windows systems engineer remote jobs? Decades of experience, Blade servers, virtualization, no fluff. Find me here Monday, Wednesday, Friday, chat. Thanks. If you know anyone who is hiring, all right, in the IT defense contractor area here, decades of experience, IT, for he's a senior Windows system engineer. He can work remotely. All right. Let her know. She's in the chat Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. I got you, Peppers. I got you, Peppers. Hopefully somebody does know and responds. That would be great. You think the admin's response to Helen and Harris being in Michigan will dislodge some undecideds and Harris supporters in Georgia, North Carolina, and Virginia, or wishful thinking? On the margin, maybe. Like, you're talking about a few people who will go, what about me? What the hell about me? You know? I mean, that's statistics. It's always weird like that. Obviously, there's always some value for someone, but huge impact? I don't know. I'm not saying it's impossible. I'm just saying I really do think when it comes down to it, it'll be the issues people care about the most, right? And then who do they think they can trust on those issues? I don't get why they're boosting Harris. If low prop voters favor Trump, best shot at keeping them home is to create a mirage. Artificially boosting makes those voters frustrated and more likely to vote. That's a good point. A lot of people think that the polls screwed Hillary Clinton in 2016. A lot of Democratic people that I talk to, Democratic strategists, they absolutely think that. They do. It's either that and or Comey they took it from. Nobody, by the way, nobody believes the Russia collusion hoax. That was a shit show. It was a show. Production news. For you, propaganda, end of story. Nobody actually believed it. That was for you. And if you still believe it, you're a fool. They made a total fool out of you. What's your view on how long it will take to count the votes and then when the race will be called? I've heard Pennsylvania will take days to count. The second question like that, it will. I mean, I'm just telling you, they're going to do it. Thursday, the least. But honestly, the race was called on Thursday last time too. Again, it will dwindle, you know. Oh my God, this is funny. I'm also a nerd, computer programmer, but don't have the bandwidth to do any work for you. Any suggestions on finding my own hot and base Latina? Woo! Man, that's a toughie. You guys know, I mean, the MAGA model that I had sponsored. I mean, Laura didn't care. You know, it's sponsored like this. Look, Republicans need to learn how to be cool, you know? So when this like model who's been you know, with liberals her entire life goes based MAGA and says, hey, you want to sponsor a calendar, you know, like it's just going to be my own thing for my site. It's like, yup, sure will. You know, I mean, they need to learn how to be cool, dude. Listen, I will just say this. Hot conservative Latina women, Hispanic women, they don't like traditional Republicans. All right. They just don't. They like machismo. All right. What else can I say about this? Laura not only doesn't care that I'm a toxic masculinity person. She likes it. It's attractive to her. All right. I mean, she can better explain this. Honey, you listening? You should come in and you answer this question better than me. You really should come answer this question. Hold on, you should come answer this question. For real. She's coming. I think I hear her footsteps. All right. We'll get back to that. All right. But I'm telling you, they don't like that soy boy shit. All right. You will never see a hot Hispanic woman, a hot Latina woman with a soy boy boba drinking loser. It's not going to happen. All right. If they don't feel like you can protect them and your family that you have made together, you're not getting them. They don't get offended easily. Just so you don't have to worry about walking the tightrope every day like you do with some other women. All right. It's just the way it is. But I got lucky with Laura. I mean, lucky. I got a constant God winks with Laura and pushes from the universe. We've known each other since we were kids. You know, we were high school sweethearts and I was an idiot. And I went in the army. I literally traveled thousands of miles, even though I had a friend kind of like keeping tabs on her. So I knew where I could find her. But I literally came back. I wasn't even totally discharged yet, although I was getting close. And I came back. This was Jersey. And on Thanksgiving night, because I had obviously Thanksgiving with my dinner. I mean, Thanksgiving dinner with my family, Thanksgiving with my dinner, of course. I had Thanksgiving dinner with my family, and then I went to go meet that friend. I kid you not, guys. And I went to the Regent Diner on Route 9 in New Jersey. And I just I'm standing in a booth. I'm sitting in a booth and with big glass window and a glimpse out of the corner of my eye, I saw the back of a woman. And we've known each other for so long that I knew it was her. Think about the odds of that. What are the odds that I would be gone all those years, come back, and we end up in the same place on Thanksgiving night? What are the odds? God wink. That was the Lord literally answering my prayer. I was like, listen, I know I've been a schmuck. I'm not a good guy. But I promise you I will be if you do this for me. All right? I kid you not. Of course, unfortunately, I thank God. Look, nobody wants to get medically discharged if they are absolutely in love with the military. It's the worst thing to be hurt. And then when you're like, all right, I'm getting up and I'm ready to get back, I'm ready to go. And the doctor is like, you can't. It's the worst thing that could possibly happen to a soldier that loves his job, that loves being a warrior. It's the worst thing. And they know it. I'll never forget the look on his face. I remember the doctor's name. I'm not going to say it, but I remember the doctor's name. I remember how he looked at me. And I knew it. I knew it. And he was like, they give you that news like you give someone the news like you have some terrible condition, like a terminal condition. I kid you not. That's how they deliver that news to soldiers who are getting put out, who they know are going to be devastated. And so, like, I guess, you got to pay a price. You got to pay a price. And I really do believe in that kind of stuff. I had a price to pay. And, it was a fair trade, more than a fair trade. I think I made out on the trade more. I think I got the better end of that deal, Lord. I think I beat you. All right. Is Scott Perry in trouble? Dems are dumping a ton of money in his district, worried about the race. Scott Perry is always in trouble. I'm serious. He's always in trouble. But I don't think he's in. I think he'll survive. I think he'll be all right. Now, listen, if it turns out in some crazy way there's a wipeout election, then he could be in real trouble. Rich, something I don't get addressed enough is the general likelihood for turnout to be lower than 2020 and how that will affect the outcome. That's a good question. I'm not convinced it will be lower than 2020. I'm not, because some of these voters that we're talking with, I think they are going to vote. I do. And we'll have to see. And if it is lower, I don't think it's going to be that much lower. I don't know that I'm where Barnes is yet. I think he may be a little too low. We'll see. Now, the polling suggests it will be lower. We're going to get a fresh new perspective this weekend. So we'll find out. All right. Want to phrase this as best as not to sound ghoulish. Do you think Mark and Trump response to Helen will have an effect on the election? I think we kind of got into this already. I don't think it's cool. It's a fair question to ask. I just don't think it'll have that much of an impact as people think. Yeah. You better reject ranked choice voting. You better. Because if ranked choice voting is implemented, your states are done. Listen, Alaska, I'm telling you, is going to be in serious trouble for the Senate. It's going to be. Period. You can thank Lisa Murkowski. What a piece of shit, huh? Doesn't accept the results of her own election. Talk about election denialism. Refused both times to accept the fact that the party doesn't want her. She don't give a shit. She's one of the worst scumbags in D.C. Rich, what do you think Trump's national vote share on all race ethnicities will be, and what is Trump's best Sunbelt state? We're gonna put that out. I mean, I trust data, and I trust my own data. I do. Now within the sampling error, of course, subgroups have higher sampling errors, but I think Trump's going to win whites by at least 13 points, at least, if you think that's the low end for him in 2020. And I think that he's going to lose Hispanics, but he's going to lose them barely. And I think he's going to end up with around 15% of the black vote. I really do. What is his best Sunbelt state? Technically, Florida's the Sunbelt. So Florida will be his best Sunbelt state. I think he'll be understated in North Carolina. That was his strongest state in both of these elections, even though the polls did not suggest that. In Arizona, it was closer than it was in North Carolina. Joe Biden was going to win North Carolina. All right. We don't have the time really because it's 225 to go to every page, but go and look at the Real Clear Politics average and you will see. All right. North Carolina was going to Cal Cunningham for the Senate by ridiculous margins. Right. Marist poll 11. Come on. I just think I believe in vote patterns more than I believe in polls. And it's outside of my own, of course. Salt and Light, welcome to the show. Have you ever interviewed Jovan Pulitzer? And what is your take on voting machines and fraudulent consistent algorithms? I know of the work. I just don't believe that is what it is. I mean, that is what it's made out to be. I don't. I don't think you have mass voting machine fraud in this country. I just don't. That being said, I think we could. It is possible. And I think that we will if this isn't changed soon. All right. This is an obvious exploit in our system. And they've been caught in so many lies about how these things are done, about how these machines work, about what, they've been caught so many lies. You cannot trust somebody once they lie to you like that about something. Oh, they're not connected to the internet. Thanks, Rich and Laura. Much love. Oh, you are most welcome. That's from you, Peps. If you aren't going to know Pennsylvania election night, what's the path that lets us go to sleep and feel comfortable? Honestly, if you can only go to, if you're a Trump supporter and you want Trump to win, you can only go to sleep comfortable if his margin in like if Wisconsin falls, then you can go to sleep. And Wisconsin will be known by election night, probably. Probably. Doesn't necessarily mean it will be, but there's been a lot tightened up and buttoned up in Wisconsin. Right? And Lombardo isn't having that shit in Nevada. So, like, they're such a pain in the butt, though. Oh my God. But there can be a margin that's so great that, we all know the election's over. And if Wisconsin does go, then it means it's a wrap. I mean, it's almost assuredly a wrap. You'll know North Carolina on election night. You'll know Florida on election night. You will not know Arizona because it's just, you just won't. You won't. And Fox may do what they did last time, folks, and make a call. I kid you not. They may. What else am I missing? You'll know Ohio and Iowa on election night. I mean, if again Wisconsin goes to Trump, then it's over. That's what happened last time. And again, remember that's what happened last time. Wisconsin was actually the stronger state, even though it pulled more to the left. Will dragging King Obama outsave them? No. Why does TUI break down? I don't know what that is. Break down white vote by education. Why does TYIU break down white vote by education? Your polls on market site. How do you expect the white? I do that just to show people education by race and gender by race. I just do. I do that. I don't know what you mean. We do that all the time, unless I forgot to put it up there last time. But we always do that. And how do I expect the white non-college vote to break down? We'll find out again this weekend. I think she's going to do worse, however, than Joe Biden did with the white non-college vote, like true non-college. I think she's going to do worse than Joe Biden. Maybe worse than Hillary Clinton. It makes sense that she would. But yeah, we always do. Gender by race. Oh no, gender by education. Did I forget to put that up there? Race by education. Rich, do you think Trump wins Dem trending suburban counties like Delaware, Ohio, or Hamilton, Indiana? That's a good question. I believe Trump won both by about 6. There's some talk about like Ohio because the Democrats who were in Michigan in 22 to make sure that Michigan was in fact not competitive because they were going to get their presidential voters out when Republicans were not, which definitely happened. They're now in Iowa, but guys, Ohio, but I do not think Ohio is going to be anywhere near competitive. Yeah, I think that Hamilton was a little bit different, but Hamilton, Indiana. Yeah. I don't think Trump's going to lose any ground in either Indiana or Ohio at all. To Harris? No. Again, she's not Barack Obama. All right. Just because she's a person of color does not mean she's going to perform like Barack Obama. It's insane. Barack Obama was cool, man. People thought he was for the working class. Nobody in the working class thinks that Kamala Harris is for them. Nobody. It's just a joke. Do I have data on the percentage of pro-choice to pro-life Catholics? Only because, buddy. Only because I have this doc right. Oops, wrong one. Only because I have this doc right here while I do this real quick. Hold on. It's old. Not old, but it's not. Is religion in here? There it is. Son of a gun. Son of a gun. Son of a gun. Oh, that's David. Yeah, polls by white college and white no college on market site. Can you show it for your last poll? Yeah. If it's not up there, I forgot. It's always up there. Always. I will do that. But I can't do it right now. But I will amend the crosstab to do it because if it's not there, are you sure it's not there? It should be there. Here's abortion designation. Oh, it's not up. You guys can't see it. Oh God, that's small. All right, here we go. Pro-life 44, pro-choice 40. That's the last one that I did. All right. Jewish voters were far less pro-life. Protestants were far more pro-life than Jewish voters. About 9 points more pro-life. Oh, no, I'm sorry. Yes. About 9 points more pro-life than Catholics. Muslims were kind of like, I don't know. But then again, we're only talking about 20 interviews. Another religion mostly split, pretty much split. 161 interviews, 42 to 38. No religion was overwhelmingly pro-choice, 65 to 19. All right. But this is what I was talking about the other day, though, David. Like, if you go down, right, you start. Let me just cross this by the abortion designation. If you go down and you say, we prompted them and say, now we'd like to ask you whether or not you support or oppose abortion during the following periods of pregnancy or under the following circumstances. Okay. Do you support during being legal during each of the following stages? Now the other one's under the following circumstances. But these are pro-choice voters, these are pro-life voters, these are the people who said they were unsure. After a heartbeat has been detected, pro-choice voters still say by majority yes, but 21% say no, compared to 17% of pro-life designees. The pro-life designation is much more solid when we do this than the pro-choice. Watch. After doctors determine a baby can feel pain, 37%, a plurality of pro-choice, still say yes. But now you're starting to lose a third of your voters. All right. By the way, the pro-life designation, only 16. All right. It stays pretty consistent throughout. During the final 3 months of the pregnancy, we intentionally do not say late-term abortion. It is a politically charged term we believe will inject bias, so we simply give them the stage in regular old plain language. Okay. Pro-choice now by majority is out the door. No. So even people who say that they are pro-choice, a majority of them, still oppose abortion during the final 3 months of the pregnancy, otherwise known as late-term abortion. And obviously, the pro-life designation goes down even farther. Anytime during the pregnancy at all, they start to split 1/3, 1/3, 1/3. Basically, they don't know. They get very unsure. One of the issue, perhaps no issue, more illustrates Republicans' inability to message correctly and effectively, then no issue does that more so than abortion. All right. And it's so clear and has been clear to me for years doing surveys like this. All right. All right. It's 4:35. I'm going to kick rocks. All right. I will be back, of course, on Monday with What Are the Odds with Barnes and Barris. We may do a hangout on Sunday because we don't have the book club going on locals. And if we do, YouTube members, I'll throw it up there in the community section that is blocked off only for members. All right. They'll be the only ones who can see the message. I'm going to go give my dad a buzz, see how he's doing. All right. And get ready for Poll Mania. Right. I will see you guys on Monday. Don't forget, if you like the videos, like them and share them far and wide. All right. The public polling project link is in the description. We've done very well with it. I haven't even transferred the one. If you're paying through PayPal, if you donate through PayPal, I just leave it there until we're ready to do the poll. Then I move it. But I think I'll check on it. I think we're good on the national poll. I think we are. And then maybe we can squeeze another one out by the end of the month. I'm probably going to do it anyway, whether it's funded or not. I want a final national poll like Monday before the election. All right. And we'll kick off in the Rust Belt. All right. Pennsylvania, I think we're doing 3 times. All right. I think that's probably going to happen. It's not 100%. We're going to do this one mid-October final. Pennsylvania is just so critical. So critical. All right. With that in mind, I'm out like trout on a fishing route. I hope you all have a very safe weekend. All right. Enjoy it with your loved ones and try not to give yourself an aneurysm, freaking stroke over the stupidity of the media. It's never going to end, folks. They're always going to be this disgusting. Nothing but love for you. Thanks for watching. And as